dramatic government shutdown in sight. Eight killed after car explodes near Delhi's Red Fort. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today with me, Daryl Baptist. The US Senate in Washington passes a government funding package aiming to end the longest federal shutdown in the country's history. The piece of legislation will now be sent off to the House of Representatives for a vote. With the stopgap funding bill passed through the Senate, the legislation moves to the House of Representatives for a vote, which, like the Senate, is controlled by Republicans. The longest ever US government shutdown will now move forward toward an eventual resolution after several Democratic senators broke ranks to join Republicans in a 60-40 vote, passing a compromise deal, sparking intra-party backlash. The chamber could vote on the bill as early as Wednesday to send it to President Donald Trump's desk. Since the 1st of October, the first day of the shutdown, more than 1 million federal workers have been unpaid, while government benefits and services have been increasingly disrupted. At least 8 people have been killed and many injured after a car exploded near Delhi's historic Red Fort. Delhi City Police spokesperson Sanjay Tyagi confirmed the deaths and said that a further 20 people had suffered injuries. Tyagi said police are investigating the cause of the explosion and are exploring all possibilities. Delhi Police Commissioner Satish Golchar told reporters that the incident happened at around 6:52 p.m. local time, when a slow-moving vehicle stopped at a red light before it exploded, damaging nearby vehicles. Tyagi said the explosion happened in a Hyundai i20 car that was moving and carrying 3 people at the time. Mumbai, India's financial capital, has been put on high alert, as has the Uttar Pradesh state, which borders Delhi. The blast happened near a metro station close to the Red Fort, one of Delhi's most high-profile landmarks. The Mughal fortress, which is visited by thousands of tourists every day, was built in the 17th century and is where Indian prime ministers give their Independence Day speeches every year. According to senior police official Amitabh Yash, security is also being stepped up at sensitive religious sites, vulnerable districts and border areas in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. Authorities recovered 5 more bodies on Monday from the waters off Langkawi Island as search and rescue teams continued operations following the capsizing of a boat carrying about 70 refugees last Friday. Over the past 3 days, a total of 25 victims have been found in Malaysian waters, with 13 survivors and 12 deceased. Malaysian Maritime Director for Kedah and Perlis, Romli Mustafa, said Thai authorities have also recovered 9 bodies on their side of the maritime border after locating 7 bodies on Sunday and a further 2 on Monday morning.
It's normal, 24 hours itu pun dah kira lama. But sometimes ada benda lain yang boleh digunakan untuk berpaut. Sebagai contoh, mana-mana kayu balak yang hanyut atau whatever benda lah yang terapung di laut, sama ada tong biru whatever, itu akan boleh long last, mungkin boleh pergi sampai a few days.
The fate of another boat carrying 230 passengers remained unclear. The search and rescue mission concluded at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, resumed at 7:30 a.m. today.
untuk lebih jimat.
And now, the International Crimes Tribunal, or ICT, Bangladesh's Domestic War Crimes Court, is expected to rule on Thursday in the case of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who faces charges of crimes against humanity over the violent crackdown on student protests in mid-2024. According to a United Nations report, up to 1,400 people may have been killed during the protests between the 15th of July and the 5th of August 2024, with thousands more injured, most from gunfire by security forces, in what was the worst violence in Bangladesh since its 1971 War of Independence. Prosecutors also allege she oversaw enforced disappearance and torture of opposition activists through clandestine detention centers run by security agencies. Hasina denied the charges, saying she was not personally involved in the use of lethal force or other alleged crimes. Hasina has been facing multiple cases since she fled to India after deadly student-led protests in August 2024. She was sentenced in absentia to 6 months in prison by the ICT in a contempt court case in July. Bangladesh's interim administration, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, pledged to hold leaders, including Hasina, accountable for rights abuses and corruption, including the crackdown on the student-led uprising last July that toppled Hasina's regime. Pakistan's powerful army chief will be given an expanded role, and the remit of the Supreme Court will be curbed under constitutional changes passed by the upper house of Parliament on Monday, a move that opposition says will undermine democracy. Pakistan is seeing its longest period of elected government, but in recent years, after civilians have sought to assert more authority in governance, the military has taken tighter hold of the levers of power, while not staging an outright takeover. The bill, passed on Monday by the Senate in about 3 hours, unusually fast for a constitutional change, after the opposition boycotted the debate, will now go before the lower house before it can become law. Army Chief Asim Munir, described by US President Donald Trump as his favorite field marshal, would take over command of the military, including air and naval forces, with the new position of Chief of Defense Forces under the proposed amendment. After completion of his term, he would retain his rank and have legal immunity for life. A Paris court granted former French President Nicolas Sarkozy early release from jail on Monday, pending an appeal, less than 3 weeks after he started a 5-year sentence for conspiring to raise campaign funds from Libya. Judge Nathalie Gavarino told the court that Sarkozy's prison sentence had been enforced swiftly because of the extraordinary seriousness of the crime. He was incarcerated at La Santé prison in Paris last month, a stunning downfall for a man who had led France from 2007 until 2012. However, the public prosecutor on Monday recommended that Sarkozy be freed pending his appeal trial and put under strict judicial supervision, with a ban on contact with other indicted individuals and witnesses involved in the proceedings. The prosecutor argued that Sarkozy did not represent a flight risk. The former Conservative president, 70, was jailed on the 21st of October after a court found him guilty in September of criminal conspiracy over efforts by close aides to procure funds for his 2007 presidential bid from late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Sarkozy has consistently denied wrongdoing and has appealed, calling himself a victim of revenge and hatred. The United States has officially suspended the implementation of the Caesar Act against Syria for 180 days, following a historic meeting between President Donald Trump and Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara at the White House on Monday. This move marks a dramatic shift in bilateral relations that had been strained for more than a decade. In a live statement from the Oval Office, Trump also highlighted al-Shara's good relationship with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan as a positive factor for regional peace efforts. During the meeting, both countries agreed to integrate the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, also known as the SDF, into the Syrian army and to support a joint security plan with Israel. The U.S. Department of Treasury stated that the suspension of sanctions aims to provide Syria with an opportunity to rebuild and grow, while ensuring accountability for those responsible for undermining regional stability. Al-Shara took power last December after leading a swift counteroffensive that ousted former President Bashar al-Assad. Israel is pressing Lebanon's army to be more aggressive in disarming the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah by searching private homes in the south for weaponry. The demand has emerged in recent weeks and been rejected by Lebanon's military leadership, who fear it would ignite civil strife and derail a disarmament strategy seen by the army as cautious but effective. The army is confident it can declare Lebanon's south free of Hezbollah arms by the end of 2025, in line with a truce deal that ended a devastating Israeli war with Hezbollah last year. According to two Lebanese civilian sources, briefed on army operations, a sweep of valleys and forests has located more than 50 tunnels and resulted in the confiscation of over 50 guided missiles and hundreds of other weapons. But Lebanese security officials said the army's plan never included searching private property. Lebanon's army also fears that residents of the south would see house raids as subservience to Israel, which occupied South Lebanon for nearly 2 decades until the year 2000, before entering again last year. Beirut also worries that Israel will keep moving the goalposts, creating a permanent risk of escalatory strikes and undermining attempts to stabilize a country battered by geopolitical and economic upheavals. Coming up next, police seize over 6 tons of shark fins in Peru. The Peruvian National Police seized more than 6 tons of shark fins in Callao, a port near Lima, a shipment that was to be illegally exported to Asia. The fins, taken from protected species, are valued at $8 million. The discovery occurred in a clandestine warehouse where 3 suspects were also arrested and investigated for being part of a criminal network dedicated to trafficking of marine fauna. According to authorities, fishermen cut off the fins and throw the bodies back into the sea in a predatory manner. The fins are prized for their supposed aphrodisiac properties and are used in traditional soups in Asia. According to popular belief, shark's fin soup slows down aging, improves appetite, and aids memory, among other advantages. Specimens from the requiem shark and hammerhead shark families are the most trafficked as an ingredient in shark fin soup. There are approximately 400 species of sharks in the world, 66 of which are found in Peru, according to the International Marine Conservation Organization Oceana. Residents affected by Super Typhoon Feng Wong began addressing, or rather assessing, the damage on Monday after one of the year's most powerful storms in the Philippines killed 4 people, though there have been no reports yet of major destruction. More than 1 million people were evacuated before Fung Wong made landfall on Sunday, unleashing fierce howling winds, heavy rain and storm swells on the most populous island of Luzon that left some sleepless throughout the night. In the country's low-lying northern province of Pampanga, some of the roads remained flooded due to the heavy rains caused by the typhoon, with rescue trucks being used to ferry residents. The storm was the 21st this year in the Philippines after Typhoon Kalmaigi killed 224 last week, with 5 dead in Vietnam. On a related note, the rise in the number of typhoons hitting the Philippines this year is of serious concern, said a climate expert in the region, who warned there may be more storms before the end of the year. Professor Adam Switzer, based in Singapore's Asian School of the Environment at the Nanyang Technological University, said recent events across the region show that there is an uptick in these typhoons. He also warns of serious concern as the oceans warm and climate change has more and more impacts on our communities.
Typhoons take their energy from the ocean. So as our oceans warm, there's more energy there for them to draw from, and therefore they're becoming stronger in time. And so this is a concerning issue because we've got warming oceans both in the Western Pacific and the South China Sea. That means that our cyclone systems are becoming more and more intense, and their impacts are likely to be much larger.
Super Typhoon Fung Wong is forecast to hit Taiwan's densely populated west coast on Wednesday, though its heaviest rain is expected along the mountainous east coast, where 18 people died in September in flooding unleashed by an earlier typhoon. Schools in Mali's capital, Bamako, reopened on Monday after a 2-week suspension caused by a nationwide fuel shortage that had paralyzed public transport and kept teachers and students at home. At a Bamako high school, students lined up to register and copy new timetables as classes resumed.
Aujourd'hui, c'est le 10. Convenablement à ce que le ministre a dit, on a repris. Ça se passe très bien. On a repris. Les élèves sont là, les professeurs sont en classe, et puis encore, les nouveaux orientés aussi sont là à faire des inscriptions.
Parents expressed relief but were worried about the impact of further shortages. The government last month temporarily closed schools as part of emergency measures to deal with a fuel blockade imposed by an Al-Qaeda-linked insurgents and a related supply crisis that saw long queues and shuttered petrol stations across the city.
Bersihkan penapis penghawa dingin dan tetapkan 24 darjah Celsius untuk lebih jimat.
Sports, Mexico presents 2026 World Cup preparations. Stay with us. Mexico showcased its preparations for the 2026 FIFA World Cup on Monday, where President Claudia Sheinbaum joined FIFA officials to emphasize the country's commitment to hosting a safe and festive tournament. She said federal infrastructure projects for the 2026 FIFA World Cup will be completed in time for the start of the tournament in June. Mexico's FIFA Executive Director, Jürgen Mainka, meanwhile highlighted the extensive coordination with federal and local authorities to ensure robust security measures are in place.
La oficina de FIFA México lleva ya 3 años trabajando con el gobierno federal y todos los órdenes de gobierno en el tema de seguridad. Estamos muy seguros, muy confiados de que los protocolos y todos los planes que se están implementando para el Mundial darán el marco de seguridad para todos los aficionados, todos los equipos y todos los árbitros en el 2026.
The planning, which has been ongoing for 3 years, aims to create a secure environment for fans, teams and referees, addressing concerns over past incidents of violence in domestic stadiums. Azteca Stadium, set to be the first venue to host 3 World Cup opening matches, has been closed for renovations, but an investment is being made by a private company on its refurbishments. The World Cup will be co-hosted by the United States, Canada and Mexico, which will stage 13 matches, 5 of them in the capital. Guadalajara and Monterrey share the other 8 games. Still on the World Cup, Germany coach Julian Nagelsmann is in no mood to test anything in their remaining World Cup qualifiers and only wants to secure 2 wins that will punch their ticket for next year's tournament. The Germans, who travel to Luxembourg on Friday before hosting Slovakia next Monday, will secure top spot in Group A and automatic qualification to next year's World Cup with 2 wins in their final 2 matches. Nagelsmann raised some eyebrows by ignoring VfB Stuttgart midfielder Angelo Stiller, but said the door for the 24-year-old, who has 5 caps, was not closed for next year's tournament. Nagelsmann had to replace Nadim Amiri on Monday, with the Mainz 05 player nursing an abductor muscle problem. Germany youth international Asan Udraogo received a late call-up to replace him. Germany are in top spot in their group on 9 points, ahead of second-place Slovakia on goal difference. Northern Ireland are third on 6, with Luxembourg last without any points. The group winner earns automatic World Cup qualification, while the second-place teams goes into a playoff in March 2026. The Germans, 4-time world champions, are desperate for a deep tournament run, having to set their sights on winning the trophy at the World Cup, co-hosted by the United States, Canada and Mexico after their disappointing first-round exits in the last 2 editions. In other footballing news, US fund Apollo's sports investment arm, Apollo Sports Capital, has agreed to become the majority shareholder in top-tier Spanish football club, Atletico Madrid. The club said on Monday without disclosing any financial details. A source close to the deal said it would value the whole of the club at approximately 2.5 billion euros. The deal marks the latest venture into sports by private equity firms attracted by their stable and predictable revenue streams. The club's CEO, Miguel Angel Gilmarin, and President Enrique Cerezo will remain in their roles and as shareholders, Atletico said, and the investment is expected to be completed in the first quarter of 2026. Sources said in September, the US firm sought to take control of the club by acquiring part of stakes owned by Gilmarin, Cerezo, and possibly from investment fund Ares Management. In September, Apollo Sports Capital also launched a $5 billion investment fund aimed at expanding its footprint in global sports and live entertainment. The fund has already acquired stakes in major tennis events like the Mutua Madrid Open and the Miami Open. According to the company, it is seeking to unlock value and enhance existing assets through capital, expertise, and structure. Over in Argentina, Independiente snatched a 1-0 win away from Deportivo Riestra in the Argentine Primera Division on Monday, with Mathis Abaldo bagging the game's only goal in the dying minutes. After a scoreless first half, the visitors made a brazen move, but Riestra goalkeeper Ignacio Arce saved a deflected shot from Independiente winger Matias Abaldo. Independiente finally stamped themselves on the scoreboard when the hosts failed to clear a long throw-in the 95th minute, with the ball falling for substitute Lucianos Cabral. He eventually laid it off for Abaldo to score with a Travella shot. The results see second place Riestra lose ground on Group B leaders Rosario Central, who remain 4 points clear, having drawn against San Lorenzo on Friday. 16-time champions Independiente, meanwhile, climbed to 12th with 15 points, overtaking Instituto ACC on goal difference. And now we move on to tennis. Italy's Jannik Sinner began his bid to retain the ATP Finals title with a resounding 7-5, 6-1 win over injury-hit Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime, or rather Aliassime, in their round-robin clash at a packed Inalpi Arena on Monday. The pair were meeting for the fourth time since August and 8 days after their last clash, with the outcome the same as Sinner eased into the match before overpowering Auger-Aliassime, who needed medical attention during the second set. Sinner began with intent by winning the first game to love and went on to give up just 3 points on serve in the opening set while forcing 5 break points, displaying an impressive mixture of sharp backhand and forehand shots down the line. Auger-Aliassime hung in, smashing 8 aces to Sinner's 1 during the first set, often at just the right time as he saved 4 breakpoints. But the Italian came through when it mattered, breaking to win the set. Sinner stormed into a 3-love lead in the second, and his opponent took a medical timeout for a problem in his left calf. Auger-Aliassime saved 2 breakpoints to avoid losing touch completely before Sinner sank the Canadian with another break to leave the Italian serving for the match, which he did in style, hammering home an ace to clinch the win. Tuesday's action features the Jimmy Connors group, where Carlos Alcaraz takes on last year's finalist Taylor Fritz, with both players on 1 win each. That's it from us this afternoon. In our top story, end to US government shutdown in sight. Malaysia Tonight comes on at 8:30 p.m. this evening on TV1 and MyTV's Berita RTM news channel. Malaysia Madani, Rakyat, Disantuni. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your lunch hour. Good day, Malaysia.